Well, to start, do you smell that? I smell a wave of blessings coming.
Oh, I like that. Ooh,
But
a wave of blessings.
I'm just completely ready to dive into it. What would you say initially was your drive for the truth about horses? Where did that drive come from?
Part of the stuff that we're going to start talking about in general, I think, is why do people create? What is the urge that makes somebody wake up one day and say, I want to make a painting or write a book or a business, create your own business, that kind of thing. What is it that makes us want to do that? I think for me, storytelling is a great way of getting messages across or themes. I wouldn't even say messages. I would say themes. Themes that I wanted to talk about in my book, or things like a spiritual world that maybe we get glimpses of sometimes, but we don't, but you have to be tuned into it, that certain people get glimpses of this spiritual world. And in my book, the metaphor for that was the herd of horses.
Okay.
And so I think that was an important theme. I think the theme of emotional abandonment was an important theme for me to get across, that people can be living in the same house and, having meals every day together, but not necessarily connecting. And in my story, the way I used that was that, Reese and her dad had this tragedy that happened to them, and each of them went like this in their own direction. They did not connect. In general, we don't connect. And I think connecting is really all we have while we're here.
You said that perfectly, because when I think about your prologue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like of how you started into the book, already telling the story, right? But we're not ready for that. We're not ready for kind of what's to come, how you just are able to drop it almost. How you dropped such an emotionally tragic thing where everyone's getting along, right? They're laughing, they're sharing such intimate moments with each other, and then all of a sudden, boom, tragedy happens.
Yep.
And you captured that so perfectly, where from the rest of the book on, you're just able to see like the real effect of how it's affecting a young girl, right? Mm-hmm. And she has a father, and it's affecting them in two completely different ways. Mm-hmm. Throughout the whole story, you're just having basically these two people who really loved each other have that emotional disconnect being in their own home, and Reese is continuously just trying to get out of her own head. Yeah. And not sit and think about this, but she can't escape it.
Right.
She's locked. And
I think our situations can make us feel trapped. Whatever it is that we decide that because my mother's an alcoholic, or because something tragic happened to me when I was 5 or 7 or 10, we tend to then look at the world then through that lens all the time, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
You now have, because you can go along in life, and I think this is the basis of storytelling too, is that you take a character, you make them go along in life where they think the world is one way, and then bam, they realize, wait a second, the rules have changed. This isn't how the world is. I can't expect tomorrow is going to be like today. I can't expect that in Reese's case that, my mom's going to be around anymore. And I think that's how, in real life, that's what we deal with, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think so?
No, tons of people. I mean, we don't really know what everyone's going through.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's something that right now someone's going through that same exact thing.
Yeah.
Today. We're human. We fall and we have to continue getting back up. And I think that the influence that those events have on people young, how you connected with the character, right? That character is showing tons of characteristics of yourself. Yeah. And showing that with those things, right? Like, we're still here today, because life doesn't stop when those events happen. And
that's exactly right. That's the thing. Life continues to go on. So now you're dealing with this tragedy, and then you also have to deal with your everyday life, your everyday existence, your other emotions, your other relationships and everything. That's the hard part.
What would you say is something that in those moments where you maybe feel hurt, lost, or that something is missing, what's something that you go to?
I didn't use about 100 pages of my book, the beginning.
Wow.
Yeah. And if I'd have known that going into it, I never would have done it. But look what it taught me. I guess that's what I'm getting back to. Full circle, what you were saying. Why do we do these things? Why do we put them in front of us? It's because we need something to teach us in life. You know, we are creating these worlds. We're creating a platform to learn something. That's why we do it. So that we can, you know, whatever it is, feel closer to God, feel. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, why do people decide to climb Mount Everest? When we're walking around on this earth and all of a sudden somebody says, yeah, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. I know a guy who did it.
Wow.
It's like, why? You know,
that sense of achievement. It's an unmatched atmosphere when you achieve something so high like that. You can't stand on any point higher than that, right?
Yeah.
And in a sense, right, with the completion of your book, emotionally, you achieved almost standing at a peak for yourself where you didn't think you were going to get there.
I didn't, yeah.
And it's like when people climb Mount Everest, there's a chance that you may be able to go up, right?
Yeah.
But there's a chance that you won't make it down.
For
or
sure.
there's not a chance that you'll make it up.
Right.
And so, funny that you bring that up because you started climbing your own emotional mountain with a different path of creating something so specific to you, right? Mm-hmm. You wrote it. Mm-hmm. So with all of that came a ton of obstacles, like you said, a ton of mental challenges where you had to pull something creative out of yourself that took so many different turns. I know that you pit stopped in places, you got stuck, you had to go over those roadblocks. What inspired you to keep going?
While I was in the process of writing, there was nothing that made me feel more alive, even when I was struggling. There was nothing that made me feel more engaged and even purposeful, you know, like it gave me something to grasp onto in life. And maybe that's why we create. We're grasping for something to give ourselves meaning, give ourselves purpose. Do you think that? Is that how you feel?
In creating, yeah, because it's art. I mean, we're all artists.
Yeah.
And we all portray our artistic abilities in so many different ways, whether you're creating a painting, writing a book, taking a photo, being the person that you're taking a photo of. You have to capture your audience to make it interesting, right? Mm. When I was reading The Truth About Horses, I was captured. Mm. I don't tend to pause and to think about really what I'm reading other than the Bible. And reading The Truth About Horses, you had me emotionally in places where either I don't know what's going to happen, I can't believe this just happened, or what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. And when I create, sometimes it can take multiple tries. I can feel like I want to give up. Mm-hmm. Like you said, hitting roadblocks with even being a model, having to take photos. Yeah,
I was going to say, so you're the subject of a creative endeavor, right? So when you're a model, you're the subject. Yeah. And that's a little bit different, you know? That's different in some ways. However, I think great photographers would always say, you see something other than just physical. There's something else going on, right?
Yeah, because internally, right, like, if you're feeling sad, you can capture something sad. There's a bunch of different looks. There's a bunch of emotions that you can give.
Without going like this.
Yeah, because, you know, you can't pout. Nobody wants to see pout unless you're being asked for it. But
okay, give me sad. Give me sad. Oh, okay. All right. Can I give you sad?
Yeah, give me sad. That's like a Betty Boop cartoon type of sad. I like it though. You know, all things like that, right?
Give me sultry. Give me sultry. Okay, all right.
It's that thing of...
How about this?
all of these things, you know, it's like having fun too, because you have to be comfortable, right? So even in your own brain, it's like you got to get something done. If you've got a job, right? If you've got a mission, you want to complete it. You don't want to step out halfway done. And so with photos, right? I mean, sometimes you can feel uncomfortable, and the best part is to communicate, right? So through telling a story or through taking a photo, you also have to be comfortable. So you take time, right? You get in your space, whether it's drinking coffee, having a cup of tea, relaxing, taking deep breaths. For me, it's making a bunch of weird facial expressions so that I can capture like the photo, whether it's, you know, things like that.
Oh, yeah, it's like a singer exercising their voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it takes time, because it's like, it's art.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why when you write, you do all these other random exercises, like writing for 15 minutes about nothing. Like, you know, it's almost exercising those muscles.
The sky is blue.
And then you finally get to what you're writing about, the themes, the direction. And it's amazing. It's like it clears the air, you know, when you do those exercises. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
When it comes to like warming up, what's one of your, I guess, first go-tos in a warm-up before you start writing?
I do the 15 minutes of writing about nothing, you know, get all kinds of shit off my mind. And because there's a lot of stuff, you know, you've got to clear the air. It's like blowing your nose, you know, you get all the snot out.
Okay, I like that though.
I don't know why I'm so dirty when I'm talking about, you know,
well, hey,
writing exercises.
I mean,
that's odd.
It's a way to put it though, right? Because it's like the only way that you can breathe through your nose clearly is if you blow all the gross out so that you can take in that fresh, clean air.
I should have said gross.
Well, hey,
blow out the gross.
When it comes to like creativity, it's the same way, because you could have a terrible day, right?
Yeah.
But you still want to write. So you have to sit there, clear your mind, get in the headspace, and then take the photo.
Yeah.
Through your writing, what's the theme?
I mean, hopefully it's going to vary for my next book. But I mean, you read The Truth About Horses. Why don't you tell me what you think the themes are?
Ooh, what I think the themes are. Give me a list of 5. Give me a list of 5 themes. And I'll go into those themes that I think and why.
Okay. So, well, I think clearly one of the themes is overcoming tragedy and how we do it, and that it's not always pretty. So you go almost through a rebirth, I think. So rebirth is a big theme for me. I think rebirth is always going to be a big theme for me, because I love the idea of having many rebirths throughout our life, you know, where you can, or, you know, redefine yourself in a
Different
way.
seasons.
Always, I don't like the idea of being kind of put in a box and expected. Oh, Christy, she does this, Christy does that. It's like, that's boring to me. And I think that's why, in some ways, I always want to keep creating. You know, that's why we want to do this, right?
Yeah.
Want to do something
Getting
totally
out of the
different,
comfort zone,
even though it's kind of a little bit weird and tiny bit scary. You just take on new stuff, because why not? You know, why not?
YOLO,
exactly, YOLO. And so I think we're here to continue to challenge ourselves, continue to create, continue to put ourselves in situations that we don't necessarily feel comfortable in.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one, don't you?
Something that I relate to is really that doing something different, not wanting to put yourself into a box, because, I mean, we're filled with so many ideas.
Yeah.
We go through so many things, and Reese goes through the same thing. It's like so many different feelings, whether it's feeling this way about people, teenagers her own age, or feeling this way about a farm, feeling this way about a horse, wanting to be able to ultimately something inside of her is overcoming something.
For sure.
So funny that you say overcoming, because that's a real theme, because she ends up wanting to overcome being able to jump over something.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like you said, right, I think that's one key part that really crosses my mind, because we go through things that we need to jump over all the time. If you have a bunch of people telling you, right, I want to be the next Picasso, and you're having a bunch of people tell you, well, you'll never be able to amount to that. You'll never be able to do this or that or capture this, this, and this. Those are people who are just bringing you down. How are you going to ever jump over the obstacle of getting to a different point in your own life if you're dealing with that weight?
Yeah. And although I do think we need those people in our lives to drive us.
Yeah, to motivate.
To prove,
Totally.
I mean, I do think that's a necessary part of
growth.
Because in fact, we hear those voices inside our head anyway when we want to do something. There's the self-doubt that comes along with it, and there's the very strong voice saying, you shouldn't try this or you shouldn't try that. No, this is what you are. Stay in your lane, kind of thing. You know?
And those are all lies, because how can we've been made to become so creative? We are so creative. Right. I mean, look at our outfit choices of the day. This wasn't planned.
Didn't plan it.
Double cardigans,
Double cardigans.
So, it's things like that where you don't know what's going to come of your days. You don't know what you can and can't do unless you try it. And Reese dealt with a lot of trials and tribulations, and a lot of, didn't have the best support when she needed it, always being deemed crazy when she was seeing these things, and then other people started to see what she was seeing. And it's like, there's creative visions like that, where if the people really become receptive to a certain thing, they open up their heart, they take off the veil over their eyes, they're able to see something so different that they didn't see before.
Well, get this. How about, what would be the thing that you would next, want to create, that you would have put your heart and soul into, that would make you feel like, okay, this is me. This is what I'm here for?
I would say it'll be the day that I end up on a runway.
Okay. That's happening, no doubt.
Well, thank you.
That's happening.
I'd like to, and so that's the thing is, right, that mentality is, I live with that, right? And it's a thing of growth, and to get to that point, because
I'm surprised you already aren't on the runway.
Takes time. I think I'm growing into that. I think that's coming in.
What do you have to do? Go to Milan or something?
Anywhere, I guess, wherever whatever client likes my look the best, then it's that booking from there, or it's a casting going and being chosen. But
wait till we do the podcast after that. That's
couldn't even. I'm ready for that one.
We're gonna manifest this. Isn't that what people do now? They manifest stuff.
Yeah, but
we're doing it.
You gotta, through glory, honestly, giving all glory to God for that one, because it's a process in which, if I wasn't ready for, I don't want to mess up that time. Yeah. And when it becomes that time, I want to capitalize on it the absolute best, because it's going to show something so different.
Right.
And there's a different light that'll shine through me then that the whole world will be able to see.
Yeah.
And I want to do my absolute best getting there, because it's only up from there. I almost wonder what it would be like if we didn't have this creative ability inside of us to get out of our own ways of, I don't want to mess up or say a sentence, or, I don't want to trip and fall on a runway, which would be very...
That could happen.
It could happen. It does happen. It has. But like I said, I don't want those things to happen, and I want to always capitalize on my main source of growth, which is change. Like, would you say that your ideas that are coming through writing, would you say that they're always changing? Have you ever been in a point where, if you have any upcoming ideas, are they changing?
Yeah, I'm working on my second book now, and it's a whole other set of difficulties and challenges. I definitely have the toolbox. When I get stuck or something, I know the tools that help me to get unstuck. Yeah. But it still is the same challenge. I mean, It's not necessarily easier because it is creating another world, it's creating other characters that are believable and they're in a real world, yet it's all totally fiction, you know. The town is called Beulah, Tennessee. There is no Beulah, Tennessee. It's set in the 80s, which I'm trying to, you know, remember. Or I should say make up, because I wasn't even here in the 80s. Wink. Aside from that, make something interesting happen that, as you said, about the truth about horses, that hooks you. You know, you read the first few pages, you're like, oh, I want to turn the next page and go on. And that's the art, that's the craft that I think is the most important, is being able to you know, create the world and the characters, but also have something interesting enough happen that makes you want to move on. And that's usually something relatable. It's usually, you know, it's all about creating circumstances that make people feel. Because I think we only turn the page because we're feeling something, you know. And it's not, for me, it's not all plot driven. It's a lot about the inner sort of battle going on with a person.
Well, wouldn't you look at that? Sneak peek on what's next with Christy.
But you were saying something earlier about when I asked you, you know, doing the thing that you felt you're here, and you were talking about being on the runway. So let's say, which is definitely going to happen, I feel it in my bones. So let's say you've done that. Then what?
Once that door opens,
yeah,
I keep going. So it'll be runway after runway, essentially having a bucket list of all the brands and things that I want to do. And then it'll get to a point where then what else is next? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I mean, a big drive in me would be to be the biggest Dante Sanchez there is, right? There's tons of Dante Sanchez's out there, but
but you're the biggest.
But I'm the biggest, you know, and because it's also not just about me, and that's what's so interesting, is that not getting too far ahead of myself, but being at this point, seeing a vision, like you were saying, you're with the ideas of your next book. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's already your what's next, working on that what's next. And for me, it's like, I ended up just doing a magazine, and that, thank you, and that's what felt like kind of, that's what's next.
Do we have a
right?
clip of that to drop in to our?
Depends on when we drop it. So could definitely add in a photo of that. But when it comes to the what's next, like that was my what's next recently. Yeah. And now that that's already passed, right? That's done. Right. Now it's what's to come, and it's almost like it's inevitable. I don't know what's to come.
Well, you remember when we were talking earlier about how you said Reese has these visions, and people think she's crazy because she sees them, or she has them, and then come to realize other people see them too. Yeah. Well, isn't that how creativity starts? Don't you sort of have a vision? Like you have this vision of yourself, you know, on the runway, and then doing all of these other things. That's a vision that you have. It's out there, and somebody could come along and say, Dante, you're crazy. Are you kidding? It's such a competitive world.
That comes all the time. That's already come.
So that is, it's just interesting that creativity really starts with a vision of what you want, of what you envision your life to be. And then what do you get out of it along the way? What you get out of it along the way is how we learn to move on to the next vision, I think.
Yeah, that's so specific, because you're right. Like, there's a small seed of dreams planted in all of us, no matter the age. Yeah. It's like all of these gifts to come, and it's like, I've learned right from my dad, who was a model back then, and watching him as a young kid inspired me to want to follow this same thing. And I think about generational gifts that you're given, right? Like, there are certain gifts that some people have that other people don't. Yeah. And growing up seeing that in him inspired me as a young kid, where you really learn a lot from your parents, whether it's good or bad. Mm-hmm. You learn a ton, and you're able to go about that and change it. And so for you, what was a gift in you as a teenager or as a young child that you'd say still is in you now and that's blossomed into this fruitful tree that you've just been able to harvest?
Oh, that's so sweet. Probably what my parents gave me growing up, this ability to live in, on a farm, be surrounded by animals. I think animals were great teachers for me growing up. My dad had a passion for poetry. My mom read to us all the time. She was always suggesting books. She'd pull me into the library, which was really my dad's little office at the end of the house, and pick out a book for me. And I would read the book and just feel transported. So I think my parents were that for me. Both of them, each of them in their own way. The importance of having animals around for me and the respect that you have for them. You now have a healthy respect for Ben, right?
Yeah.
Ben can be a little naughty sometimes.
Yeah, I love Ben.
We love Ben.
Gotta give him his space. He creates his own boundaries.
My chocolate lab. Yeah.
That's where that seed was planted for you, was as a child.
Yeah.
All of those things that you were seeing.
Yeah.
The hundreds of words that you're being read, the poetry and the way that the sentences are being articulated and showing you, right? So that is where that influence came. Now, as a kid, right, you've listened to a ton of reading, you've read a whole lot. What's a character from a book that you wish you could have had a conversation with? And in your book, The Truth About Horses, what's a character that you would love to have a conversation with?
Oh, that's fun. In John Irving's A Prayer for Owen Meany, I think Owen Meany is a riot, and that's a character that I've always loved. And when I read that book, it stuck with me, and the voice was so strong. I could just see him, I could understand him, and laugh with him and cry with him. And so that's one example. Yeah, he'd be a character I'd want to talk to. And I think obviously, I don't know, Reese is probably the one I know the best in the book, but maybe I would like to talk to, might be her dad. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he's kind of a lost character.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah.
And was able to finally find himself in the end and really jump over his own obstacle.
Yeah.
I think for me, a character from a book that I reading and have heard from that I would have liked to talk to would have been John the Baptist.
Oh, cool.
To understand what he was feeling and how he had so much faith.
Yeah.
And what it felt like to be the one to pave the way.
Yeah. And
in The Truth About Horses, a character that I'd like to talk to would be Wes, although I don't think I'd get much from him. What's funny about that is that almost ties into faith a little bit too, because sometimes, right, if we have moments where we pray, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we talk to God, but we don't always get an answer back. Mm-hmm. And Reese kind of goes through that a lot with Wes. She talks to him all the time, and he doesn't respond. But he is always listening, reacting, doing things like that, kind of, whether it's in the behind the scenes or right in front of her. And she wants a conversation from him.
For sure, yeah.
And that's so funny, the way that those two things tied together.
I think she learns more about herself having someone who in her life who doesn't speak than she would if somebody was always telling her what to do and how to do it, and in a very important time in her life when she needed guidance. Yeah. She learned more about her reactions and what she was thinking and what she sort of expected him to say. Yeah. Maybe she was right, maybe she was wrong. But she learned more about herself having him as somebody in her life than than having someone talking all the time.
All of what we've just said kind of has connected, where some of the most growth comes when there's silence.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to almost listen to that inner voice and also acknowledge the silence and be like, okay, so I'm not hearing much. What am I going to do, right? Because you don't want to just kind of rely on yourself and then go down this rabbit hole of nothing. But sometimes that happens, though. Sometimes we have to go down this path of the unknown, make our mistakes, right? She's made loads of mistakes. And that's an example of us. We make tons of mistakes. And how do we grow? It's through those mistakes, which I think you're right about. It's crazy that you say that a lot of what she learned was from not really having anyone, because she couldn't talk. She didn't want to talk to her dad. He didn't understand, and she didn't have her mom to talk to, and she really wanted to talk to her mom. And it's like she didn't really fit in with anyone, always was arguing with stepchildren, and also feeling so many things with being by herself, where I think we feel that way a lot of the times, where if we can't talk to anyone, we sometimes get frustrated in ourselves, where how are we going to move past this without any guidance? And guidance will come along the way.
Right.
You can always consult in someone else, ask them for advice, an idea, hey, maybe can I have help with this? But there wasn't that. And so I guess with that, where did that whole idea of her being so, I guess, self-emancipation.
Obstinate?
I would say obstinate, but I was almost going to be like, like it seems like kind of she wanted to like emancipate herself.
Oh.
Right? Like in a sense where doing all that she did, right? She came home, but she never wanted to be home. She was always looking for reasons to get out of the house.
She didn't feel at home in her home.
No. And so like, where did that characteristic come from? The always being driven, wanting to do it on her own.
Well, I mean, I think that part of storytelling is ways of coming up with describing something that makes whatever that character wants very difficult to get, And if it was easy, we wouldn't read the book. And so part of me, the creative part of me, and also the, just knowing how people work, you don't want to make things easy for them. You want to put as many sort of roadblocks in their way as possible. And I used her relationship with her father. I think it was a very natural roadblock, because teenagers automatically usually have awkward relationships with their parents. And especially when there's a tragedy, especially when she maybe lost her closer parent, So, which that's not a giveaway because it's in the prologue. So I think I knew that I needed to really make that relationship messy and difficult in order for it to be believable, but also in order for it to be something that was relatable.
Totally, because that just connects to a lot of people can relate to
and
that.
Then enter the stepkids, and that creates a whole nother mess.
Yeah.
And so part of my creativity was putting as many roadblocks in her way as possible.
For you, obviously, right? You have been given inspiration through almost your own challenges. So when you were a young kid, what was a way that you overcame the challenges in front of you?
I think for me it was horses a lot, my passion for horses. Another thing my parents let me do was raise a foal that our mare had when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And our mare had a baby, a foal, and I got to raise him. And my parents weren't really horse people, and so I had to learn everything about this horse.
The truth about horses.
Yeah, by books that I'd read, by the guy who owned the ranch where my horse was, who's this kind of rough guy, and just, kind of cobbled together what my horse experience was. And it's all about it's all about passion. I was so passionate about him, and I mean, I just remember everything that I did in my life from the age that I was like 9 when he was born until I was probably, until boys came into my life. No, until I was probably, 17 or something, was all about this horse. And it was all consuming, and I was in love, and also he was like my child, and I, it was something that all my friends knew when they came over, oh, how's Rambler? Are we going to go riding? It's like that was a huge part of my life. And that's the thing, is it was automatically a learning ground. It was automatically, there was a place for me to learn so much about myself with having this horse in my life at such a young age.
Wow. I have a similar feeling about my dog.
Yeah.
And
what kind of dog?
He was a black lab golden retriever mix.
Oh.
And, as a young kid, right, I didn't do all the taking care of him.
Yeah.
But I did show him a lot of love.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I learned to have more of an appreciation for him and the things that he was doing for me that I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Being there for me when I needed it.
Yeah.
And his life was so inspiring because in 2020, he lost the ability to walk in his back legs.
Oh.
And through love, persevering, and strength, he gained that ability to walk again.
Did he really?
My dad would have this blanket and would put it under his back legs, like right on his stomach.
Yeah.
And would help him walk so that he could just go and use the bathroom because he wouldn't want to get up.
Yeah.
If we didn't push him to get up, he didn't want to.
Yeah.
He just wanted to lay down. And so by doing that, my dad helped him and pushed him to go to the bathroom, to take those steps that he didn't want to take himself. And he ended up, sooner or later, through prayer, through persevering, ended up gaining that ability just to walk again. And that was so inspiring because when he was down, a dog.
Yeah.
And this is for all of you people out there who have animals. They have personalities and
our
souls
huge
in there.
audience.
They
all our
have
millions,
souls.
all our millions of people.
They have souls, just like us. Emotions, go through things, feel things, separation, anxiety, whatever it may be.
So true.
They have.
So true. Dogs are angels, basically.
They have real emotions, and he lived a whole nother year after that, and even before he died, he saw what I was going through in my own life, and I remember the day I had to go to school, and he wasn't doing well at all. The vision lives in my head still, but he knew what I was going through, and he didn't want to die in front of me because of what I was going through, so he waited till I left so that he could pass away in the home.
Dante, you're going to make me cry, but you know what you need to do? You need to write about that.
I think that's definitely something that has so many degrees that I could write about.
I feel like I had closure in some way with my horse. I mean, I wrote my book for my mom and my first horse, Rambler.
Yeah.
And it's because I had a kind of an awful ending with Rambler in that I left for California. I had these opportunities. I didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't do much, so I gave him to my niece, and then essentially they kind of lost track of him. So it was a very sad ending for him. But I had closure in writing about those feelings in my book. And so with your dog, what was his name? Jackson. Write about him.
I think I'm going to.
Yeah, because that will be his spirit kind of, carrying on now and what he meant to you. I think that'd be very cool. I mean, when I'm hearing you talk about it, it just feels like there's something in you that needs to get out about that dog.
Yeah, I would say that you're right, because I don't ever forget about him.
These things, I'm starting to get ideas of topics to write about, and it's usually things like that I realize, oh my gosh, that happened so long ago, certain situation happened so long ago, but it really affected me, Those are the kinds of things that we can create about. And maybe it's not, do you paint?
No.
I think you're a great writer.
I do like to write. That
yeah.
I do like to do.
I think writing is where it's at for you. For even if just an exercise,
Yeah, to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And to not keep myself in that box.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
do something different.
Yeah.
See, and that's a cool thing about you though, is that, right? Like telling a partial story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel the degrees of that. You know that there's depth. So it's like you as a writer, as an author, I'm not an author, but
everybody's an author. Everybody can write.
Well, that's fair.
Basically,
coming from an author, right? You got to hear that. You got to listen to that almost.
Absolutely.
Can't not acknowledge that.
It's just the only thing that separates anybody who writes something from somebody who doesn't is just that they did.
Yeah. Okay. That act of
true.
actually doing it.
Yeah.
So like, you say we're all writers, and so I asked. So the beginning of wanting to write and create would be something like, for instance, right, what I just told you about Jackson, like, that's a good base point to create something with.
Here's your homework, okay?
Sure.
Sit down and set the timer for 15 minutes. Don't write about Jackson. Write about anything but Jackson.
Okay.
And as fast as you can. Don't edit. Don't correct grammar. Don't do anything like that. Just write. It could just be from like, oh, I'm really thirsty right now, to, I need to do a cold plunge, or I'm feeling this about this, or this relationship is bugging me, or whatever it is. Just anything, but don't write about Jackson. Then when that timer goes off, get a clean sheet of paper, or however you write, blank screen, and then start writing about Jackson. Your first memory, how you felt, what it was like to have him in your home, and then just kind of slowly, but don't rush yourself. Let it be something that, kind of transpires over a few days, because what'll happen is that story as you go to sleep at night, you'll be like, oh my God, I remember this that I hadn't thought about Jackson, right? Or another thing comes up and you're like, it's amazing what the intention of sitting down to write something actually does to us subconsciously, and how things bubble up and give us ideas, and it happens to me all the time. I love it. It's my favorite part of the creative process, is that something comes up that I never would have thought about if I hadn't have had the intention to write about it.
Yeah, I'm almost actually, like, funny enough, filled with almost emotion actually talking to you about this, because it actually feels like a seed of creativity has been planted.
There you go.
And it's like this is how those things start, is by either talking with a person, right, having that support of, you should do this.
Totally.
Not don't do it.
No.
You should do this, and working through ways of doing it.
This is the first step of getting it done.
Yeah, seriously.
The conversation.
When it came to you starting the process of writing your book, right? Mm-hmm. Working through those things, we talked a little bit about that, but when you maybe felt like you couldn't do it, who did you go to, if you had anyone that was like, you can do this and you should do this?
Well, that's actually why YouthINK was created, was because I had two mentors who had read a rough draft of my story, and both of them came to me afterwards and said, this is a really great story and you need to continue writing it. And I was in a place where I didn't know what I had. I thought it was a mess. I thought it was, there was some good stuff in there, but I didn't know if it was literally like novel worthy. And they gave me the confidence, because of who they were in my life, knowing that they read things all the time, knowing that they were authors themselves. They gave me the confidence to keep going, and hence, that's where YouthINK came out of, is that I felt like I wanted to be that to someone else, someone else who said, write your story, write it down, or, make it happen no matter what you're doing. get rid of all of the noise in your head and just do it.
Wow.
Clear the noise.
Clear the noise.
I try to meditate. Do you ever meditate?
Yeah, sometimes, not all the time.
Oh my God, that's like the hardest friggin' thing there is to do. To just sit there and not
clear your mind, not allow the thoughts to race. I deal with that. The thoughts just keep going. Different ideas. Oh yeah, you want to sit and be at peace?
Yeah.
Think about what you're going to be doing tomorrow, or how you're going to be doing it.
What are you going to eat? I'm always like,
what am I eating for
gonna
breakfast? I think the biggest part about what's so cool that, like, that tree of creativity that's in you, in us all. Mm-hmm. But then, right, one branch of creativity then blossomed into YouthINK. And then from YouthINK blossomed into other things.
Yeah.
I met Christy through YouthINK.
That's right.
Right? There had been only, I had a process in which I had to audition for, right, to be chosen as a person to be a part of it, and then I get on it. I don't even know who Christy is at the time. And then I get
shocker. I mean, how do you not know who I am? Come on, Dante.
and
Come
guys,
on, Dante Sanchez.
This is before the truth about horses. But there had been stuff leading up. But hey, what I'm saying is, no, of course. But even then, right, being younger, I had no idea even who Christy was or anything. And no shade.
No, in spite of our 10-year age gap, we had a lot to talk about.
Yeah. And so what was crazy is that it was like...
He didn't even catch that.
No, I did. I can't remember, though. Time flies. But, like, with that, right, it then turned into just a few conversations, right, the first time. And then 2024, second time around, that's when this experience was different. That's when there were so many more points, was able to have a lot of deeper conversations, and was really able to develop like that close friendship with Christy where I would have never expected this was the outcome, right? Me auditioning to be a part of it at first. And then now here we are. We're doing a podcast right now.
Kind of cool.
That's what I'm saying is, so like out of creativity, all the fruits that came from that branch, it was extremely fruitful. Mm-hmm. And this is why you never want to put yourself in that box, and you always want to push yourself to grow.
Yes.
It's because how are you ever going to know if you don't try?
Exactly.
And this is the product of trying, persevering, not giving up, having faith, and looking towards the light instead of being consumed by all of the obstacles of you can't, why you can't, how could you even do that? That's not for you. Why would you do that? You have to block it out. You have to really plug your ears to all of those negative thoughts, because if you don't, the one thing that will fill into your mind is a bunch of doubt, and it starts in here. And if it's not in your brain to start already, it will come through other people. And
as we talked about earlier at my house before we left, is that then it can fill with, if you don't fill it with creativity, it can easily get filled with things that aren't necessarily healthy. We have to be careful of that. But I think it's time to thank all of our sponsors.
Yeah, thank you, sponsors. We appreciate you all. Can't name at least one of you, but we're appreciative for you out there.
And our entire audience. I want to thank all of our followers.
Yeah, thank you guys for anyone listening. So make sure you hit that follow.
Maybe next time we'll have a guest. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, anything can happen here at this podcast. What are we calling ourselves?
Ooh.
Maybe the Cardigan something or another?
No, I'm not feeling that one. No. I don't know. That one's going to take time.
We'll
think.
We're building the ship. We're building the plane as we're flying it. I like that.
Okay.
We don't even know our name yet.
Nope. Love all of you guys. We wouldn't be here without you.
Okay, and cut.